Hi, everybody. First of all, welcome. Thanks for coming. My name is Quetta Carpenter. I'm the head of acting at University of Texas at Austin, Department of Theater and Dance. So we're talking about self-tapes, how to make great self-tapes. This was an important thing before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, this has become crucial. This is where everything is happening. This is where all college auditions are happening now. This is where all professional auditions are happening now. So all of a sudden, it's crash course time for self-taping. So it's really kind of great that we're talking about this early rather than at the end of your career when you're ready to go into the profession. So the couple things I want to talk about, I'm mostly going to talk about this from the point of view of making a tape for a college audition. But I'm also going to throw in some things for professional stuff, and feel free to add questions at the end about what would I do in a professional situation that's slightly different than this kind of a tape. So we're mostly going to be talking about how to do a theater style of tape. So the first thing I want to talk about is framing. Now, some of this is difficult to do because I'm on a webcam right now, but I'm going to do my best job of showing you a frame for a monologue, okay? So if I'm seated in a monologue, I want to be framed about like I'm framed right now. So you want to skim the top of the head with the frame. So you don't want to be here, you don't want to have a lot of headroom at the top. You want to make sure that your head is actually skimming the top of that frame. Now, if you move a lot during it, make sure that it's the highest point is skimming it so that you don't end up doing this when you lean back, right? The bottom, you're going to want it about hip, about hip, seat-ish, or waist, somewhere around there. Anywhere in that range is good for a seated monologue. Now, if you're standing, I'm going to do this a little bit with my fancy webcam here. Standing up, it's the same deal. You're going to want to go about from the top of the head to about the hips or the waist. So here's my waist, here's my hips here. So this is called the American shot, to have your hips in the frame. This is from all those Western movies. It got known as an American shot, but it's actually more popular to do this shot. So this is either of these will work for a monologue. If you know you're going to move around a lot, you're going to want the American shot as opposed to the waist shot. So you have a little bit more room to move. If you know you're going to step forward in the monologue, just make sure that you don't that you're going to step forward and you adjust that framing before you begin so that you don't end up walking too close to camera. So those are some rules of thumb for framing. If you're filming a film tape, if you're asked to do a film scene, one of the requirements for our admissions this year is a film scene. So if you're asked for a film scene, you're going to come in a little bit closer into what's called a medium close-up shot. So I'm going to do this really fancy here by stepping a little closer to the camera. So we're going to go here about mid-chest to the top of the head, and it's okay if a little bit of the hair gets cut off. And you're going to want to be center frame or a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, looking in the opposite direction. So I can look here, or I can look here, or I can be center frame. Either one is fine. So that's how you're going to frame the shot. The next thing I want to talk about is lighting, which is probably the most important part. Lighting is really tricky. And lighting for a webcam is very different than lighting for a phone, which is very different than lighting for an HD camcorder or a DSLR camera. Whatever you decide to shoot on is fine. You can shoot on just about anything. Most people use their phones or their tablets, which is great. But you're going to have to make sure that the lighting works for the camera that you're using. The most important thing for the lighting is that we can see you clearly. You don't want any shadows. You notice I don't have any shadows on my face or on the wall behind me, so nothing is distracting from what I'm doing. And you're going to want a little reflection. You can see there's a little reflection of the light in my eyes. That's what makes you look alive in the frame. But this is a really important thing. It's a really small thing. So how do you achieve that? How do you achieve no shadows? And how do you achieve the little reflection of light in the eyes? So you're going to need a couple of instruments, minimum of 2 instruments, placed generally here and here, which is where my instruments are right now. There's only 2 instruments on me, and that's where they're placed. So number one thing is that. Second is the kind of bulb you use. This is what I use. These are LED bulbs. They're the kind that are not made to mimic indoor light. So they're the kind that is this very cool tone, what's called full spectrum light. These are very inexpensive light bulbs. They look like this. Any kind of light bulb is fine as long as it's called either full spectrum or daylight. You can get these at the grocery store. They're super inexpensive and they last forever. I've had these in these instruments for years and years, at least 6 years, and they're still going strong. So now you have the bulb. You have the instruments. You can use anything for instrument. Now, when I say instrument, yes, you can use professional instruments, or you can use a lot of DIY things. You can use any lamp in your house, as long as you fit with this kind of bulb. You can use what I'm using right now, which is actually a very inexpensive DIY solution, which are these hanging light instruments. that you can get from either IKEA, or I got these on Amazon. And then I use one of these, which is a paper lantern. Also very inexpensive, also from Amazon. You can also get one from IKEA for about $5. These are great because they do what we're going to talk about in the next step, diffusion. They do diffusion automatically. So you have this instrument, you put your light bulb in it, you put the ball around it, automatically diffused light. Diffusion is super important. That's how we deal with shadows. That's how you make sure that the light that's on you isn't harsh, it doesn't make shadows on your face, doesn't make shadows on the wall. You can diffuse millions of ways. The thing that you want to think about is getting something between you and the light bulb that is going to make the light softer and bigger. So if the light bulb is this big and I put this huge paper ball around it, the light source gets a lot bigger and it glows, and it's not going to give shadows on me. So this is how I'm able to get this light. This whole setup cost me about $20. So it's a really great way to do this. Yes, you can also buy a professional lighting kit. They'll cost you about $50 on the low end if you want to do that, but it's absolutely not necessary. And I have done this with hotel. I always travel with these bulbs. It's very silly, but I travel with them, and I swap out the hotel light bulbs with these, and then I hang white bed sheets. I take them off the bed, and I hang them on a chair or something in between the light and me. So you can do that too. You can diffuse with a sheet. White shower curtains work really beautifully. Baking parchment, if you happen to have that, or tissue, like paper towels, anything that is white, that is see-through, not see-through, but light can get through a little bit, will work. Pretty much anything. So look around your house and think, what do I have that would work? You can stick things to the ceiling and hang them. You can put them on anything tall in your house, just as long as it'll sit in front of that bulb for you. Now, a lot of you may have what's called a ring light, which looks like this. This is a very big one. These can work as well, but they're very, very intense. Even on their brightest, even on their lowest setting, they're very intense. So you sometimes get a very harsh shadow with them. They're better used in combination with a couple of other light sources, and they work better if you diffuse them even more than the diffuser that they come with. So wrapping this ring light with paper towels is a really great way to soften that light if you have one of those. You can absolutely make this work as well. So any of these combinations of lights, again, here and here, is what we're really looking for, and that gives you that reflection. So you get too little reflection in your eye, and then you get no shadow, which makes the tape look great and means we can see what you're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is sound. So sound is not something you really have to do much about. You just need to think about echo and ambient noise. So if you have an air conditioner, you might want to turn it off, even though it's going to get a little sweaty, because it will keep the tape from having that underneath it. So it can be very, very helpful to turn off the air conditioning. If you have a pet, I have a dog right now who is 2 bedrooms away in the closet because she barks. So if you have a pet, just think about putting the pet away so that you won't have that extra barking sound or whatever that may happen. Anything you can do to control the sound. If you have hard floors in your room, I have hard floors in here, so when I tape, I sometimes will put down blankets if it gets too echoey, if I know I have to talk loud, or if I know I'm doing a monologue and I'm going to be talking a lot and I want to keep the echo down. So those are some things to think about for sound. As far as how you deliver the file, for the most part, there's 2 ways you can deliver a file to someone. You can either upload it into their own proprietary thing like Accepted, or you can send it to them on a YouTube or a Vimeo link. Vimeo has better compression rates. I personally like Vimeo better, and they're both free. There's also a service you can use called WeTransfer that is also free that you can upload a large file to. Any of those are good ways to send videos. But when you send them, you're going to want to make sure that the video is not if it's going to be downloaded, you want to make sure it's no larger than 100 megabytes, because then it starts to get really, really, really hard to download. It'll take a while, and then sometimes also on the internet, when it's on YouTube or even Accepted, it will sometimes stutter when it plays if it's too big. So usually a file is going to come out about 259 megabytes. So how do you get it down to 100 megabytes? There's a really easy trick if you happen to have iMovie, and Adobe Premiere also has this, and most phone apps have this. If you send the file by email, you're not actually going to send it by email, but pretend like you're going to send it by email. It'll prepare an email for you and then save that file before you send it, and it will automatically be compressed at a much smaller size than any of the presets. I don't know why this is, but it is. And it's a great little tip and trick, particularly for iMovie. It'll usually get it down under 50 megabytes, which is really, really helpful. It doesn't really ruin the quality at all when you're talking about digital. Okay, so we've talked about lighting, we've talked about framing, We've talked about sound a little bit, and we've talked about how to send your file. So the other thing I want to talk about is how do you put two clips together, right? If you know how to do iMovie or Adobe Premiere or any other editing program, you already know how to do that, right? Most of you know how to put a couple of clips together. That is one way you can do it. But if you only have your phone or your tablet and you want to do it directly from your phone or your tablet, there's a couple of apps you can use. One of them is called My Self Tape app. One of them is called Shoot Me. And one of them is called Slateable, which is hard to say, Slateable. Any of those and any other self-tape app you find, those are the ones I know that are inexpensive or free. And they will actually put the clips together for you and send it directly from your phone, so you won't have to do any importing and exporting of the file. If you either don't have time to do that, you're traveling, or you just don't have the software to do the video editing. So that's a great way to deal with that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about before we go into questions is how to select good material for a tape, particularly for college auditions. So if you're looking for a monologue to tape for your college audition, one of the things to think about is what it's for. So a monologue is not to show us everything that you can do as an actor. It's not to show us you can cry real tears. It's not to show us that you can do every character in the rainbow. It is to show us who you are. It's to introduce yourself. So you want to look for a monologue that is as close to you as possible, which means the language is super contemporary and it really feels like you. It feels like something you might say. It feels like a situation you've been in before. You've had this argument before. Maybe the words are a little different, but you've been in this argument. You've been in this situation. Because it's going to be automatically closer to who you are. Your performance is going to be better. And you're going to be able to bring specificity to it that you wouldn't be able to bring to something that maybe is a little further away from your experience. So think about characters that are in your age range. And by age range, I mean high school and college generally. When you start dealing with divorces and children, we start getting a little further and further away from your direct experience. So talking about students, people who are young professionals just out of college, even up to that age, and people who are in high school. Any of that is going to be great material for you, much better than trying to pull off Becca from Rabbit Hole or something like that. So look for contemporary plays. Where do you find contemporary plays? There's a fantastic resource, if you don't already know about it, called the New Play Exchange, which I believe is just newplayexchange.org. You can pay $10 for a 1-year subscription, and you have access to thousands and thousands and thousands of new scripts. You can download them, you can read them, and you can get monologues from them. It is a wonderful, wonderful resource. You can even share subscriptions with a friend if you like. So $10 for a whole year. It's the best way to do this. It's digital, so it's perfect for the pandemic time. And also, you get to know brand new writers and established writers. So it's everybody who's writing now. They're all living playwrights who are writing right now. So all the stuff is going to be very contemporary, and you're going to have a much better chance of finding stuff that fits you and that really feels like, yeah, this is a good monologue for me. Because ideally, you want to love that piece. You want that piece to be something that when you get to do it, you're going to be like, I can't wait to go in the room and show them this awesome piece that I love. As opposed to, I guess this will work, which is what most people end up with monologues. You get tired of looking and you end up with something, you're like, I guess this will work. I did a monologue for about 10 years from a play called And Miss Reardon Drinks a Little, which is really old. It was not a good fit for me. It was a terrible monologue, and I just kept doing it for about 10 years because I didn't know how to find anything better. And finally, somebody at an audition was like, why are you doing that monologue? I said, I don't know how to find anything better. And they told me what I'm going to tell you. Read a bunch of plays. And by a bunch of plays, I don't mean read the 3 that you auditioned for at your high school. I mean, read a bunch of plays. Read as many plays as you can possibly find. And when you find a character, when you find an author that writes characters that are similar to you or that you like there's certain authors that will write a character and that character will pop up in a lot of their plays. So when you find that author, read every single thing they've written and then start looking at who produces their plays and then start looking at what other plays does that theater produce and then start reading that author. It's a really great way to find your way through playwrights. There's nothing better than a theater actor that actually knows a lot about the current American theater. That is a wonderful thing to bring to a college audition, that knowledge. Because what you pick, whether you realize it or not, tells us a lot about what you read and how much you read. So when you're coming in and you're bringing in something that maybe I haven't even heard of, that's a new play that was written maybe last year, that's going to make you sit up and go, wow, okay, this student is really out there looking for material. So that's going to be a great thing for you. Plus, it'll also serve you really, really well. A couple other things to think about with selection. A lot of monologues are written in such a way that you're telling a story from the past. Like you're saying, you remember that summer on Grandma's farm when the cow kicked over that pail of milk and we had that argument and you laughed and blah, blah, blah. That was awesome. If that monologue works the way it's designed, I will picture the cow and Grandma's farm and the pail of milk, and I won't remember you. So this monologue is, even though it's great, and in the context of the play, it's a great monologue, it's designed in such a way to make me imagine an image instead of an action. So it's not going to serve you as well. So stuff that's in present tense when you're dealing with a person one-on-one in present tense is always going to serve you better. So look for something like that. Also, look for something that you're not jumping immediately into the deep end of your emotional ocean from day one. So when you walk in, usually in a live audition or a tape, you got to just kind of jump into it, right? And that's really hard to do when you go from like, hi, my name's Quetta Carpenter, daddy, and it's impossible. It's an impossible transition to make. So make sure you're jumping into something easy, jumping into something that you can get there without having to work yourself up and imagine something horrible and put yourself in a mood, right? So something that's very easy to access. You don't get difficulty points for monologue auditions. It's not like, well, this monologue wasn't very good, but it was really hard, right? Doesn't matter if it's easy. Make it easy. Make it the easiest monologue you can find for yourself. Something super easy that you can memorize easily, that feels in your mouth like words you would say, that is a thing you automatically know, right? It's not about showing range. It's about showing who you are. Think about it like a talking website. Hi, I'm Quetta. This is basically what I sound like and talk like. This is kind of who I am. This is a little quirkiness of me. That's all it's for. And if you want a contrasting piece, if you were asked to do 2 contrasting pieces, rather than thinking about comedy and drama as your contrast, think about contrasting who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a parent in one of the monologues, don't talk to a parent in the other monologue. Talk to a parent and maybe a significant other. Talk to a sister or a principal at school and my best friend. So you're contrasting the situation, and it's going to automatically contrast the monologue. Now, sometimes comedic can actually can be great, but sometimes comedic will get in front of you. It feels a little bit more like stand-up comedy. So avoid anything that feels too funny, because the joke will be funny and I won't remember you. So again, it's about showing off yourself. It's not about showing off the humor of that piece. So contrast in whatever way makes sense. As long as the pieces are different, the contrast will work beautifully. All right, so that's my spiel. That's my 20-minute spiel. So what questions do you have either about monologue auditions for college or self-tape auditions for the profession or anything else that I might be able to answer for you today?